if you want to understand what it is that I process, I don't know about other refiners, what they take, what they don't. I know a lot of them are along the same lines as I am. But as far as what I take for material, especially computer material, you need to sit back and watch this whole video. I'm not begging for view time, and I'm not doing any of that. My view time's fine. I'm not worried about that. I want you to watch this because it's got a lot of helpful information should you want to send something to be refined. And how a lot of refiners, like I said, some don't mind doing everything. I don't have the time to do everything, every bit of the refining, with just like you, for an example, popping chips off a board and sending. There's a lot of work involved in doing chips, a lot of work, and I can't do it all, and I definitely can't do it all for the fees that I charge, to do this. So if you would sit back, watch this video. It's going to explain a lot of questions that I'm asked. Many times I'm asked the same questions over and over and over. So if you would, watch this video, and this is going to help you understand more of what the process is, some time factors, the reasons why I take some items and don't take other items. This doesn't pertain to like jewelry items or things like that. This is mostly computer scrap. So this will help you to understand. Jewelry items, a different story. You need to contact me with that anyway if you're going to send stuff like that. In fact, you need to contact me before you send anything. But I mean, that's really, we need to kind of hash a few things over and make sure we're clear on a few points before anything is sent to me for refining, and silver, gold, whatever. So anyway, like I said, sit back, watch this video, and I hope it helps you understand more of where I'm coming from on the do's, don'ts, and why I take and what I take and why I don't take items to be processed or refined. So we're going to get into it right now. Oh, hey everybody, Backyard Scrapping here. Today's video is actually going to be kind of more of an informative video. I get a lot of questions, and I've done a couple other videos similar to this one way back, but I've get tons of questions on what type of materials that I accept and types that I don't accept for refining. Basically, right off the bat, most refining jobs, just so everybody knows, the split is 75-25, with 25% going to me. But even out of that 25%, you got to realize I only end up with about half of that. And in all actuality, this is my hobby. I do it for a hobby. You never get paid for your time when you're doing this, including when you're doing the scrapping part. Because it is very time consuming. But anyway, one of my customers, we're going to refer to them as M, has graciously allowed me to use the material that they sent to be worked on and refined as an example for me to explain why I will do some things and why I won't do some things, and what I will do and what I won't do, especially when it comes to computer scrap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get started with this video and show what M sent us. And they also said here for me to please send back whatever I'm not going to process, which I'm going to do. But here's the list of what was sent. And I'm going to go through them one at a time and explain to you what and why I will either do it or not do it. So, and this is really pretty much, I mean, there are other scrappers out there, or other refiners out there that will take and do everything, and then, it usually takes forever because the process, if you're actually having to recover it and do the refining, the process takes forever. In fact, I'm going to be coming out with a video on my buddy Steve's pins, where we're actually going to try and experiment to do you know, to do kind of run-of-the-mill pins in a much faster process, which is, hopefully it'll work, and I'll also be able to use it on, you know, on M stuff, because there's a lot of pins. But anyway, let me get started with this real quick, and I want to go ahead and show you what was sent and explain the what's and whys. So in our first package, in our first little package that is made up over here, it says 92 grams of large gold-plated pieces. Basically, that is, you know, stuff like this, which we've all seen. 99.9% of this is full gold plate. You know what I mean? It's not, you know, a lot of it's going to be flash plating. Probably not going to get a ton of foils off of stuff like this, but we're going to get, you know, some black powder gold and stuff like that. I mean, everything is pretty much right in here, except for this one piece, which is actually a connector, an RCA connector. And I prefer that this already be, you know, broken off, or already just this part of it in here. In other words, don't send a bag full of these with this on it, you know, with this part on it. You want to just send them, you know, like this. That's how you want to send your stuff, already prepared and ready to go. And the reason being for that is, I'm the refiner. My customers are the scrappers. If I'm going to do, like, have to remove all, you know, 100, 200, 300 of these, and then you're adding 10 times the work to me, and I'm not going to get anything more for it. So, I mean, it's just common sense that says, if you're going to do the scrapping and I'm going to do the refining, then you got to do your part and I got to do my part. But anyway, that's okay. There's only one in there, so that's no big deal. But this is how material should be sent. In other words, it should be ready to go, cleaned up, you know, as much of the lead or tin off of it as possible. I know you're not going to get every single solitary speck, but I only accept full plate. In other words, if you're going to send something like this, that is just, you know, little tipped mixed pins, I'm not going to do this. First of all, it's going to take too much time to do it. It's going to take tons of acid to do it. A lot of times I'll save these up and either sell them, or, you know, throw them in old AP and let them sit for a year. You know, if I got a big bucket of AP that, you know, I haven't been able to process the acid back out of, you know, just to get the little bit of gold off of them. Because these tipped pins, it takes tons and tons, and it takes tons of this stuff to get anything anymore. They have gotten so good at plating that, you know, I mean, they flash it on there, there's barely a coating on it. It's almost like spray paint gold, you know. So, but anyway, pins that are just tipped, I do not accept at all. I only accept full plate material, and I only accept this material for that very reason, is it still takes a lot of this type of stuff. I mean, even to the point where you may only get a gram and a half per kilo of the newer plated material. I mean, unless you have, you know, telecom boards, military grade pins, something that actually has a heavy, thick foil laid over the metal, or, you know, laid over the metal, kind of like gold-filled jewelry, you're just not going to get that much off of them. So anyway, this first bag is acceptable. Okay, it was 92 grams of large gold-plated material. That's fine, because it is prepared and ready to go. Now the second bag that M sent is 118 grams of mixed chips. First of all, I only accept processors, and that's usually ceramic processors as far as chips go. And I normally only accept the BGA type chips, which are, let me see if I've got one out here. Well, we'll get to it anyway, but the BGA, the Gold Corner BGAs. But anyway, this is just another, this is bag number 2, and this is mixed, just some mixed up, looks mostly like BGA chips. The reason I do not accept this, now what you can do is you can get them ready or burn them. But an example, this has a heat sink on it. Okay, that means I have to take the time to take the heat sink off. Then I have to also take the time to remove these, you know, the, oh, for goodness sakes, you know what these guys are. I'll think of it in just a second. But I actually have to clean this material up. Well, you added double to triple my time to get a tiny fraction maybe of gold out of this, and this one actually doesn't even look like it has gold. It's probably just copper. But yeah, the MLCCs, that's it, the MLCCs. I have to take all of this off. All this lead also has to be removed. Well, I don't have the time to do that. A bag of pins like this right here can take up to 6 weeks, sometimes 2 months to dissolve. So you're talking about a lot of time with a lot of jars and a lot of things to keep track of. I do not have the time to remove all of this tin and lead here. That has to be soaked off in hydrochloric acid. Then this center chip right here is going to have to be broke open and either burned or dissolved with sulfuric acid or and then the gold's going to get refined. Well, that's not my job. My job is to refine it. My job is to basically do the dangerous part. All right, but that's random pins. This I don't have the time to do that, and if I do, I'm already not making anything for my time. I might as well be paying you. If I do this, if I'm to take this stuff, I would be taking this in and then literally paying you to do it. This, however, just so everybody knows, is a decent chip. This is actually a processor. It's a Pentium 2 processor that comes off of a slot card, the old slot card processors. These do actually have quite a bit of gold in them, but there's only one in here. And still, the heat sink has to be removed. The tin has to be removed. This has to be broken open to expose the gold bond wires. There's still a lot of work involved in that. That's recovery. Recovery is getting to the part that needs to be refined, just like that. Okay, so this is actually going to go back. That is not acceptable for me to do. Our package number 3 is 38 grams of mixed chips, which I'm not even going to open this. Again, it looks like small BGA chips, but I believe what these are camera processors. And the same scenario, they are in a resin or black plastic. These either have to be burned or dissolved in sulfuric acid. Now, if you are going to burn your IC chips and your BGA chips, you can send me the clean ash. And what I mean by clean ash is you have burnt them off. You have pyrolyzed them, you have crushed them, and you have removed as much of the metal and as much of the magnetics as is possible, and then rinsed the powdery ash away. In other words, leave it in a bucket, overflow it, clean it. I only want the heavy stuff sent to me, which is going to end up being a little bit of the plastic is going to always remain. Mostly your silicon diodes or your silica chips that are going to be broken up from crushing your ash will remain, and then there's going to be some aluminum and some copper and your precious metals left in that ash. Even once I get the ash, the clean ash, not the powdery, dusty ash, you just burn them and send it to me. No, that's not how it goes. You have to clean that ash. You have to get rid of the majority of that junk material off of it by washing it off. Then you can send me what's left to be processed. And the reason for that being is even once you have sent that material, it still has to be acid washed and cleaned. In other words, I still have to dissolve off the base metals as much as possible, because there's still going to be copper in there, aluminum, probably a little bit of steel. You're not going to get all the magnetics. So there's still a process of cleaning up even before I can process that ash to recover the gold or the other precious metals. So therefore, if I'm doing it all, then I'll just do my own if I have to put all that extra time in it. You popping a chip off the board and sending it to me to do all the work is not recovery. Recovery is getting it to the point to be refined. So once again, these chips are going to go back because they're not washed ash. If this was a little bag of clean ash, meaning that they were burned, they were rinsed, cleaned off, as much of the garbage has been removed as possible, then I would take them. But as chips, or even just burned and done nothing else done, I cannot accept those. It puts too much time into what I have to do. Okay, our number 4 is a bag of these green fiber chips. I know we all have these. I have them. I have bags of them. I took them off the boards for years. I don't know how many kilos of them. I still have them. These are worthless. Okay, there's virtually no gold in these. You may get lucky, and on the end, like on this one, you have a little arrow here or a little dot that's gold plated. That's all the gold that's going to be on these. These are actually a processor, kind of a processor type chip, but they are not gold bearing. I am not saying that there aren't a few out there here or there that may be, but 99.9% of these, I actually forget the actual name of these. I know what they are, but the only gold you're going to get off of them is this little bit of surface gold here and here. And for what it takes to dissolve this tin and solder and get rid of all that just so you can get to this little bit of gold, it is absolutely not worth the effort. I don't even take these off of boards anymore. So just for a reference, those are absolutely not worth taking. So those are going to go back. Okay, now we have bag number 5, which is 217 grams of gold boards. Now what these are, I don't know what they came off of, but they're heavy gold plate boards. Okay, they're very thick, so even though it's 205 grams, you're not getting a lot of gold off of them. The only gold is going to be right here. It is more than likely flash plating, even though it really looks good, and it's, you know, it seems to be really heavy. It may come off as foils. I don't know. In my experience, I've found even most of this pretty stuff ends up coming off as flash plating, which is the little fine black powder that you really have to be careful and use really slow filters to get it all. But that is acceptable, and the only reason I would be keeping this is because down the road here you'll see that that M has also sent some fingers and some other gold stuff similar to this, that this can all be thrown in one batch. So we will be actually keeping and doing that. We are at number 6, which is phone plug pins. That's fine. That's full plate. No big deal. That's, you know, just goes through the process of time and waiting, unless our new process works out, which I hope it does, that we can do these a lot faster. But anyhow, that's just, you know, from phone jacks, wall jacks, whatever. So that's a full plate pin. I don't see, maybe a tiny bit of tin here and there, but not enough that it's going to mess anything up. So this is processable. Number 7 is a bag of mixed pins, which is the same way. If you will notice, these have been cleaned up so that even the tin and solder has been cut off of them. So that is considered full plate. So that is an acceptable method. Now, if you want to go ahead and magnetically separate them to make it a little easier on me, that's great. If you don't, I'll run a magnet over them, but I do process my magnetics separately from my non-magnetics. And I've spoken about that before in other videos. So that was number 7. Number 8 is small BGA. They have VGA, but it's BGA chips. These again look like to be some type of little processor chip. They do have a gold corner on them, or a memory style chip. But once again, that is the entire chip on here, and these actually have a green fiber board behind them. So the chips have not even been removed from the green fiber board. This is a no-no. Again, that I will accept the clean ash from chips. I do not do the whole process on chips except for the big BGA chips, which we'll get to. So that goes back. We next have number 9, which is gold-plated chips. Number 9. Now these are actually, I think they look like the ones that come out of the big screen, the old-timey big screen TVs. It's a processor type chip. They are ceramic, so therefore this can be processed with ceramic processors or processed in the same way as ceramic processors. So this is an acceptable material. You don't have to do anything but pull a ceramic chip out. The entire ceramic chip is processable just the way it is. We don't have to do anything to this other than maybe smack it with a hammer. So that's no big deal. Any ceramic chips are processable. Let me get the rest of this stuff and I'll be right back. Okay guys, we are moving on. We are up to package number 10, and what package number 10 is, it's listed as 503 grams of fingers. It is actually not all fingers. I'm going to have to sort through this, and I'll show you why, but which is what this video is about. It's where and why. Yeah, that's old-timey fingers. We know that. It's all processable together, okay? But an example of what this is this is not actually fingers, even though it looks like fingers. This is off of an LCD board, or like a flat screen TV or an LCD monitor, and it is that backboard on the back. These look like there's a lot of gold on them, but they're not. It's actually like these things. It's just a flash plating of gold. It is not an actual foil. It is a flash plating. An easy way to tell a foil from something flash plated is running your fingers over it, or your fingernail over it. If it's smooth, it's flash plated. If it's rough or it has indentions in between, then it's a foil. This is heavier gold plating than flash plating. Most of this in here is fine. The only thing I'm going to check it over for is lead. A lot of times in between these, you know, LCD things, there will be some lead, and I will pull out anything that has lead or tin on it. Here's an example of that. This little board right down here. Okay, even though that's part of it, that's actually looks like part of a cell phone board. But you see the back is all covered with tin and solder. All right, I don't want to fool with that. I can't, you know, that's not for me to fool with. This is a whole different process. First, you have to get rid of this tin and this solder before you start going after the gold. So there's going to be a few pieces in here like that, but for the most part, this looks like some pretty good, you know, it looks like there's some pretty good older stuff in here like that. That's heavy gold foils. Even these little eyelets are going to be very, you know, heavily plated, but we're going to have to put them in a little hydrochloric before we start dissolving the copper. Anyway, but that's fine, doesn't matter. This and this, that's why I said we had something earlier that was going to go together. These will actually go in with this. So that will be one process right there. So that is acceptable. And if you see, they're all cut off. So you didn't send me, or they didn't send me whole boards for me to do the trimming and cut off the fingers, or, you know, or to trim out the gold parts. You do the trimming. Okay, I get the gold off of it, and I process the gold, and I refine the gold. Basically put, even like with a chip, okay, if you pop a chip off the board and you send it to me, the chip, I don't care if it's a 5-gallon bucket full of chips, it's irrelevant. If all you did was, anybody under the sun that's got a hammer and a screwdriver or a chisel or a pocket knife or what can pop chips off of a board. I'm not making light of it, it is a lot of work, but it's just popping the chip off the board. In order to get the gold out of that chip, if you're going to use do the burning method, you have to pop the chip off the board. You got to get rid of the legs if it's got the big legs on it. Then you got to pyrolyze them or burn them. Then you got to crush them. Then you got to sieve them. Then you got to get all the magnetics out of it. Then you got. So if you just send me the chip, what's involved? How much work is involved about you popping a chip off the board? And then me burning them, crushing them, filtering them, washing them, acid washing them to remove the rest of the metal. Then I have to dissolve the gold, drop the gold, you know, and then do it again. And what is fair about you getting 75% of it just because you popped the chip off a board? Now, if you want to send me chips to do, you want to send me a bag of chips, you know, that are IC chips or something you want to do, I'll do them. I keep 95% of the gold because I'm doing 95% of the work. So, plus, it's my chemicals. Might even be closer to 97% I would keep. So that is the purpose of you doing the work. By you processing the material down to a point that I can start to clean it up and get it ready for refining, we're actually making it more of almost a 50-50 deal when it comes down to that. And I'm still only getting 25%. So, I mean, that's the basics of it. Popping a chip off the board is not preparing the material for refining. So once again, this is prepared. It's cut fingers, it's cut pieces of board that have gold on them. For the most part, there's not that much tin in here. What there is tin in here, I will pull out and remove. So that's a keeper. So now we are moving on to bag 11, which is pinless processors. Now everybody thinks, for whatever reason, and they actually do look very nice. Most are going to be penny and fours or something along those lines, these pinless processors. It might actually be up to a dime or 11 cents today because gold is way up, but that's all there is. There's probably about 10 cents worth of gold in this processor. So you have to have thousands of these to add up to anything. The next thing is, it's got the back on it. Okay, I'm not going to sit here, pop the back off of this, clean up the lead, remove the MLCCs, cut this away so I can just get to this part that has to be dissolved for 1.5 cents per piece. Even a penny. I'm probably, by the time you end up with it, my end after my chemical stuff is going to be about a penny. Now, if you want to prep these, if you want to knock this off, get your heat sink off of it, and you want to cut out this so that the MLCCs aren't there, so that I don't have to mess up my chemicals or the chemicals get messed, and you just want to send these, that's fine. They can be tossed in with this type material. I'm not saying it's not worth it to do it, especially if this is all you have. But when you cut this away and you go from what this bag weighs with all these to the back and say it's just the exposed board here without all this other extra weight, and it weighs this much, yeah, you're going to get a little bit of gold. But as it stands, there's 10 cents worth of gold in here. So, and this, all that was done from this was a heat sink was removed, a lever was thrown, and this was lifted up off the board. That's the recovery for this. Didn't have to take a chisel to it or a hammer. Now, how can you expect fairly, for a fair cut, for me to be the one that has to knock this off, get rid of the MLCCs, cut this out, then do all the acid work and refining? See, it's simply not fair. You have to prepare your material. Now, if you do that, you know, here's an example. Here's one with the back off. Well, if the back was off and this was already cut off of here like that, so that the MLCCs aren't in there to contaminate anything, and these pieces were thrown in with this bag, that's fine. That's great. I will work on that. But the way these are here, they have to be returned. So we're moving on now to bag number 12, which is gold-plated leg chips. Okay, now these are actually they're like almost like EPROMs, but they have the gold legs. These are kind of hard to come by anymore. They're actually a decent chip, but it falls into the same category. This is plating that is on these legs. You still have to do away with this plastic, which means they have to be burned and cleaned. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna go through 90% of the work for 25% of, not even 25, for 12.5% of the money. It's just not worth it. I mean, as it is, like I said, I don't get paid for my time, so those have to go back. Let's see, now we are on number 13, all right? Number 13, everybody probably that does computer scrapping knows what these guys are. These are gold corner BGA chip bottoms. These, once again, look like they have a lot of gold on them, okay? You know, it's exposed gold, you can see it, you can see the little bit of gold here. But once again, looks are deceiving. These contain very, very little gold. The Next problem with these is, I'm not saying they're not worth doing. If you have thousands of them, yes, they are worth doing. But again, you have a ball grid assembly chip, or array, whatever you want to call it, assembly, array, however you want to say it. You have to deal with all this tin and lead. You got to get rid of that. Then you can go after the little bit of gold that's on these. This entire big bag, okay, is probably wouldn't produce as much gold as 10 of the caps would. 10 of the black caps. This entire bag. So I'm not saying it's not worth it to keep them. I'm not saying there's no gold on them, but the process of doing these is, I would process these if the ball grids were off of them. In other words, if I didn't have to deal with any of this tin or this lead, yeah, I would throw those in with this, because it's a clean material. It can be thrown in with your fingers and you get that little bit of extra gold. But another thing is with these is these are a fiber. They're almost like a fiberglass. Sometimes you got to sit there and scrape this off. Even you might leave it in the acid for weeks and you take it out and you're still going to have to physically dig into that, scrape it to get that gold to come off. So I'm not saying don't keep them, that they're worthless. It's not that they're worthless. They're not worth it for me to process them, having to deal with the lead and deal with everything else that has to be done to get to that. So that's going back. Next we have, let's see. Next we have whole BGA chips. Now this is what I'm talking about. I will actually keep these and do these for them, but this is not how I want BGA chips sent to me. Okay? This is the bottom of the BGA chip that I just showed you over here. Not saying it's worthless, but it takes thousands of them to get anything. I want to show you how you send these. Okay, there's only a handful, so I don't mind doing this. This is the part of the BGA chip that you want to send. Okay? You want to take that black cover off. See the gold underneath? Looks like there's a lot of gold there. There's not. This is where the gold is on a BGA chip. It's in the bond wires inside of this plastic or inside of this resin. That's where the gold is. So this part, no. That part, yes. So the fact that there's just a handful of these in here, maybe it looks like 40 or 50, there is going to be a little bead of gold out of that. I will actually take these apart for them just because it's only 40 or 50, but don't even send me bags of 40 or 50 without them being separated, okay? And this is not that hard of a job to do. You pop that off the board, very simple, you just saw me do it. This pops off the board, make a little pull here, a little pull here, a little pull here, slip that knife blade under it, get it enough to where you can get the blade under it. A lot of times it takes a little pair of pliers to break it loose a little bit. Where you can get the blade under. And this one's going to be a bear just because it wants to be. And then just roll that chip off of there. And once again, you'll see that underneath, yeah, it looks like there's a lot of gold there, but there's not. I mean, there's just simply not. You can see it, but it's not a lot of gold. There's where your gold is. So, like I said, I'll do these for them just because there's a little bit of extra gold there. So, but normally, I want those separated. You don't even need to waste the extra postage that it costs to send all that weight, you know, for what it's going to eat. That's not even going to cover the return postage on itself. Okay. So we got the BGA chips. We have pinned processors. Alright, now we're going to get into another little technical area here. I'm going to dump this bag of processors out, and I'm going to show you something. Okay. Alright, there are some processors in here that I will process. As is, just like they are. Those are ceramics. Okay, so ceramic, ceramic. That is not a ceramic. Okay, this is actually what's called a black fiber processor. If you have a lot of these, they are worth processing, but these have to be processed together and by themselves, just as they are. There is a little bit of work involved in doing this because you have to bust this center resin chip out, and this has to come off before you can do it. If you're going to send me these type of chips, let me know first, because it's going to depend on how many you have. These are ceramic. See, do we have anything else in here than ceramic? Okay, I don't see any more ceramics. What we have is in here some AMDs, some Pentiums, and whatever. Now I'm going to explain something to you about these processors. Okay. Plate has to be removed. Same scenario. These have to be removed. The MLCCs have to be removed. Then these have to be heated up and the pins have to be knocked out. If you want to do that and send me the pins from these type of processors, from the newer processors, that's fine. You also want to try and keep these pins separate. Your smaller processors are a different pin base than these larger processors. Okay? But that has to be done. I'm not going to sit here and knock these pins out, and I'm going to tell you why I'm not. Looks to me like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. We got 31 of these green and tan and brown fiber processors here. See this processor? That one processor probably has more gold in it than all of these put together. So I am not going to go through the effort of removing the heat sinks from these, cleaning up the MLCCs, taking the pins off, and then going through the refining process. Again, not to say that these are not worth saving. They are worth saving. But 100 of them only yields, half, 3/4 gram of gold. Okay? Where this one processor probably right here is going to yield more gold than all of these processors put together. So even though there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with this little one, 6 ceramic chips, with these other 2, 7, 8 ceramic chips, I will process those. I won't touch these. This is just, it's not worth it. It's not worth the time and effort it takes for me to do it all. If you want to take the pins off, get rid of the MLCCs, and just send the pins as you would a bag of pins, that's a whole different story. That's fine. That is ready to go material. This, just because it's a processor lifted off of a board, does not make it ready to go. The only processors that are just lifted off the board that are ready to go as is are ceramic processors. Your AMDs are going to have, some are going to have this little back, aluminum back on them. That's fine. I don't mind knocking those off. But again, you knock that off and send it, you pay less in shipping. If every one of these ones you send has got this back on it, you're going to pay more for shipping because it's going to be heavier. You also got to remember that shipping is not free. Okay, so these are keepable. I'm actually going to throw these 2 back in because 2 of them is not enough to process. You need about 25 or 30 of this, of these black fiber. There are green fibers too, and you can tell which ones they are because the pins go actually all the way through the board. See this? See how you got pins here, just like the same on this one, but you turn it over, there's no pin back. These pins go all the way through the board. So you have to process this whole processor as is. This has to be removed and this has to be broken open. So if you have enough of them, I will do them. But if not, you can't actually heat these up either and remove the pins. It won't work. If you heat these up to try and knock the pins off, they won't come out. So, but these, in order to process these, I will process only the pins. So, we're going to move on from there. You know that. We're going to keep those processors because they're actually, even that little bit is far, far more worth doing than this. So, we are going to move on from here. So, we're only going to keep some of those processors. dump this off. Okay guys, last but not least, in this box we have a bit over, looks like 2.081 kilograms of gold-plated pins and items. And after opening this little box and seeing what is in here, this couldn't be more perfectly prepared. Okay? Now, I don't know positively, these are a little brassy looking. We're not going to know if they're gold or not. I mean, as with everything until we do it or test them. But, if you notice something about this bag, they're all the same. All the crap has been removed, or 99% of the crap has been removed, and it's the same kind of pins. That's perfect. Okay, same scenario here. I don't see any silver color in here at all. I don't see little to no tin or solder or lead or anything like that, and basically all the same type of pins. Beautiful. Now, I'm not saying it's required that you have to separate and keep your pins all, uniquely the same. But this is a very, very good job, and this is a very good job, and it's a very good idea for recovery. No matter what anybody says, it is always best to process like material with like material. When you do that, you run into less chances of some metal dropping out another metal or this or that happening, because everything's the same. Same scenario again right here. I know what these are, little connector ends. Yeah, there's a little bit of wire with this, so there could be a little bit of copper to deal with in these, but again, all the same type of pins. And like I said, I'm not saying that that's absolutely necessary, but if you're taking the time to do this, why not? I mean, you look up on my shelf up there, all my type pins, I try to keep the things alike. I try to keep things the same. Just an example, that's just battery things off of laptops, battery connectors. Okay, that's all that's in there, is battery connectors. So I know when I process these, that's all I have to deal with. Here once again we have another whole great big bag of light pins. Perfect. This is absolutely the perfect way to send something, because there's still a lot here and a lot of time to be spent and a lot of time to be done with these pins. It's not just going to be a 1, 2, 3 process. Granted, it may not take a lot of hard labor and the labor it took to pull and trim and cut and get these pins ready, but now we're talking about, I mean, if my little test thing works out that I'm going to do on Steve's pins, that's going to be so good, because it is going to save us so much time on processing and tying up jars and tying up beakers and tons and tons of acid. I mean, 2 kilograms of pins is going to take a lot of hydrochloric acid to dissolve. I mean, even though we're not talking about the expense of nitric acid, we could never do these in nitric acid. Even though they're good, look like good quality pins, there's some more foam pins, and even though, they're all full plate, another big full bag of light pins. Great, beautiful job on that end. That is perfect. But, like I said, even though they all look good and whatever, the majority of these are more modern pins, which again, we're going to fall back into what I call flash plating. Which is a lot of powder. We're going to get some foils off of these, but mostly we're going to get a lot of powder off of these as well. So, I mean, if we have to dissolve every bit of this metal, we're looking at 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that, and we're looking at several gallons of hydrochloric acid. It's just going to take that much. I mean, a gallon of acid only holds so much metal. And as that acid gets more saturated, the process slows. So many times we don't really exhaust our hydrochloric acid when we're doing this, because you simply don't want to sit there and wait months on end for this stuff to go. I'm really hoping that this process that I'm going to try on Steve's pins works, because that is going to save us an ungodly amount of time. I mean, we may be going from processing that takes 6 weeks to 8 weeks, dropping it down to a couple days. So I'm definitely hoping that works. But beautiful job on the pins. I've got to say, beautiful job on this stuff. You got it trimmed. You got just a couple pieces that have lead in there. Again, these type processors, doesn't matter, ceramics, send them like they are. They are completely processable just the way they are. This is one of the few things you actually pull off a board that you don't have to do extra work on. The other rest of these pins, all the same kind of stuff, still great. That's a great way to go. And like I said, there's only a few of these, maybe 30 or 40, maybe 50 of them, enough to get a little bit of gold. So I don't mind taking the backs off of them. But everybody, please remember, when you send the BGA chips, we don't need these. We do not need the bottoms until you have pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds of them. And even then, we still have to do them in old AP or something to make it worthwhile, because we got to get rid of all this solder and all these solder balls and all this tin. And in fact, I believe a lot of these BGA chips, I think there's a possibility that there may be a little silver in it. I've heard controversy either way, but the process, I've seen one process show a little bit of silver because it is a silver solder, and I've seen other processes show no silver. So depending on, you know, how you want to try and process these, you might get a little bit of silver. You're going to get a little bit of gold, but it's going to be a little bit of gold. I mean, this bag, like I said right here, isn't even worth what it's going to cost to mail it, the amount of gold that's on it. Your pinned fiber processors, you got to clean them up. You got to take the pins off. You got to get rid of the MLCCs out of there and just send the pins. So guys, I think we've pretty much covered it. Don't forget that these other ones, I'm sorry I didn't take the time to look them up, but they are a processor type chip, but they literally have nothing in them. They aren't worth messing with. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, you couldn't have done a better job on this part and this part. A lot of people don't know what to do. They just don't know exactly how to process things, and that's where I'm hoping at this video. I hope you took the time to watch all this video so that you understand the process. Like I said, I know I've been repetitive in it, but I have videos on this before. This is probably the most detailed one I've done, and I'm being repetitive because I'm getting the same questions asked over and over. So watch this, you know, try and watch this, or I hope you watch this video all the way through. In the beginning of it, I'm going to tell you, you really need to sit down, take the time and watch this video if you're going to process computer stuff, so you know what to do and how to do it. Guys, I appreciate you. We're going to get to work on this. We actually have several different kind of things we're going to have to do here, but we're going to get to work on this shortly. It is actually next in line after Steve, and we'll get back to you guys in the next video. So everybody take care and stay safe out there.
I hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time.